So everybody, my name's Matthew Daines. I'm one of the organisers of today's virtual conversation with Professor Josué Azuara Medellín. I am an alumnus of UC Davis and a member of UC Alumni UK's Sustainability Committee. Tonight's conversation is the first in what we hope will be a series of talks with UC faculty and the UC community in Europe. We are extremely grateful to Josué for agreeing to speak to us about himself and his work, and we are grateful to Carlos Mechner for introducing Josué to our group. Before we start, please can we all introduce ourselves by telling Josué our names and what we do. So if we could make this short and snappy. Patrick, would you start, please?
Sure, happy to do it. Great to see everyone. Patrick Mispagel. I went to UC Davis, studied political science, and have been in financial services for a number of years, based here in London, working in sustainable finance for Moody's. Very good. Carlos.
Yes, I'm Carlos Mechner. I graduated from the UC Davis. I'm on Ph.D. in engineering, in computer engineering. I work for the University of Bristol now, working in the National Composite Center in the digital development.
Great.
We are sustainability in our portfolio.
Great, thank you very much, Carlos. You might want to turn your volume up a bit, mate. Sarah, you're next, please.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sarah Adams. I went to UCLA undergrad. I currently work with Vert Asset Management, a company that I co-founded with my husband 7 years ago to invest sustainably in capital markets.
Thank you very much. Irisalda.
Hi, hello. I'm Irisalda Correa. I'm currently a PhD student at Bristol University, working with water for livestock.
Thank you very much. Jason.
Good evening. I'm Jason Mollering. I'm the president of the UC Alumni UK group, and I graduated from UC Santa Barbara.
Very good. Diego. Diego, can you say
you're on mute?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. I am an MBA from UC Berkeley. I'm the chair of the Sustainability Committee, and I wanted to welcome you all to our first event, which I'm sure is going to be very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Colin.
Hi, everybody. My name's Colin. I am the Director of Engagement and Partnerships at the UCLA Institute of the Environment and Sustainability, but I actually happen to live here in the United Kingdom. So Matthew and I have been working closely together, especially on sustainability initiatives. To the familiar faces, hi, it's good to see you, and very much looking forward to hearing today's session.
Great, thanks, Colin. And Victoria and Ashley. Victoria, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Victoria Frost. I'm the UCLA alumna and president of the UCLA and the UK network. And I'm very excited to be here. Great.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm co-chair of the UC UK Running Group. And I'm the project manager in healthcare. I'm very interested in more about this talk and making our supply chain more sustainable.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I think that that's everybody. So to make this conversation as interactive as possible, we'll do a round robin format in which everybody in the webinar is invited to participate by asking a question. We've put some pre-scripted questions in the chat. They've been randomly assigned. Alternatively, if you like, you just want to ask a question of something that you're thinking about or a question that's inspired by something that you've heard, please feel free to do so. But for this format to work, please can everybody keep an eye on the chat, the questions in the chat, so you know when it's your turn to ask Josué a question. And if nobody does that, I'll step in. So to enable everybody to get to their next meeting, we'll aim to wrap this up about 5 minutes before the top of the hour. So if that makes sense to everybody, I'll begin. Josué, tell us a bit about yourself, please.
Okay, yeah, I'll have prepare some 2 or 3 slides. So here is, can you see the presentation? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm from a place, a very small place called Tempoal, Veracruz, Mexico. I'm a mechanical electrical engineering from Monterrey Tech in Mexico, and I also have an MBA, and I went to Davis to get a master in economics and a PhD in environmental policy analysis. I work as a project engineer in my early career, then as an environmental manager. Then I came to the US in 2000 and I pursued my graduate degrees. This is the place where I'm from, very rural area. I grow cows, cow operation. This is the location in Mexico in the tropic. Some of my family pictures, some of the traditions down there, a very tropical area. These are my 2 kids and my mom. She has a little fabrication shop, and my dad is a physician who likes flowers, as you can tell, and reading. And so these are my first 2 jobs. I work in a pulp and paper company. It's a big group called Copamex. And then this is my alma mater in Monterrey. And then on the bottom is the truck and manufacturing company. I work on water resources management. California, as many of you know, has climate extremes. We have a lot of the runoff in the blue areas concentrated in the winter, as right now, and the demand is concentrated in the heart of the Central Valley and in the urban areas south. So we have an amazing network of infrastructure. We now have floods. This is a year of floods, but we also have droughts, and we have an amazing mosaic of agriculture that is given by those, all these colors that you see in the Central Valley, which represent a specific commodity. But we have this whiplash weather. And Daniel Swain with UCLA, you might know him, writes about this whiplash weather in which we have these atmospheric rivers that are these jumps in the precipitation chart that can give us the difference between a very dry year, like 1976, and a very wet year, like this year right now. This is where we are today, and this is the wettest year on record. So we have these challenges. We also have issues of the very poor countries and very rich countries. Each of the colors in the map is a water quality problem. So talking a little bit about the Watershed Science Center at UC Davis, I keep an affiliation and associate director there. And it is a center that is really interdisciplinary. We have biologists, fish biologists, geomorphologists, engineers, economists, and other disciplines. We have about 20 affiliated faculty, 30 research staff, postdocs, and 45 students with an average budget of nearly $6 million per year and a lot of outreach. So we work on the Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta, primarily agriculture, environmental restoration, drought, groundwater floods. The research budget is mostly state funded, but also receive federal grants and other local grants, and also give money. These are some of the sponsors of the research. We also have the California Water Blog, which is highly influential, 14,000 subscribers. We have a blog every week with contributors, invited contributors too, and it gets to many places. There's also experimental learning, a lot of field trips. This is the Grand Canyon. It's a 2-week trip, and it's a class. And there's been also trips to Alaska. We also look into diversity funded research. We try to have underrepresented minorities in the research and in the education experience, and also land procurement. And I think that is the last slide. So this is just a quick overview of what the center is and the research I take. So I'll just stop here and be open for your questions.
You made my job easy. I was up next with a general question about the center, but given my, I guess, political science roots at UC Davis and having grown up in Sacramento around politics, coming from overseas, it seems that in the US, topics related to climate change and the impact are becoming increasingly politicized. I'm just curious, in addition to the science and the work that you're doing, what does the center do, if anything, in terms of interacting with policymakers that can hopefully help with any of the mitigation or solutions that you're considering or you think would be suitable?
Right. So as you saw in the slide, a big chunk of the research is state funded. So what we produce is independent reports. The motto is we work for everyone. We work with everyone. We work for nobody. So we're trying to be an independent source of information of science, and to translate the science into actionable or recommended actions or promising alternatives. So a lot of the research is we try to put in all the technical information into appendices and do brief reports that include always policy recommendations. It's just things that are low-hanging fruits, short-term, mid-term, longer term, what requires some reform, what does not require some reform, what requires some funding, what can be done with very little funding, and all those kind of things. So the most recent example, well, it's not as recent, it's 10 years ago, we did a study on nitrate contamination in groundwater, and just to try to identify the sources and the vulnerable groups and what to do about it. And a lot of it, it was found that mostly it's not septic tanks, as many people might think. It is really application of fertilizers in agriculture. A third from manure, and the other from synthetic fertilizers. So those are applied in excess, get to groundwater, and you know that can affect the quality in the long term. And some promising solutions were identified, particularly to protecting clean water sources. So the policymakers, the agencies are interested in those kind of views and solutions. So that's just to give you one example.
Thank you.
Diego, you're next.
Josué, what's your role as director of the center? Are you involved in the day-to-day research? Are you setting the strategy? What's your role on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, there's a few avenues in which I can participate. I can bring grants as a principal investigator or co-principal investigator. I also mentor students. So many of the students in the center are graduate students, so I participate as a member of their thesis committee, and also in oral exams. I also, participate sometimes as a collaborator doing the economic analysis or some other piece on agricultural economics. So I'm a contributor in the blog, and I also contribute in terms of strategy, just try to see the strategic plan, what are some areas of potential growth in collaboration with other campuses. I'm probably the only associate director out of the campus. So that gives me an office there, which is quite nice, and a great atmosphere for collaboration.
Thank you. Carlos?
Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You hear me now? Okay. Just want to ask you, any plan, any project or any big effort, what kind of effort you are involved with, or you see the watershed and the communities working on the climate change and sustainability of the water, obviously water and other part of the economical change, economical elements in the valley, and what and any experience in another country that, for example, Latin America, UK, I mean Europe, etc. If you can briefly comment about it.
Sure. There's I see several things there in your question. So research that I conduct is mostly related to water resources management and agricultural economics. So a lot of the things I study is adaptation to drought, climate change, and sustainability comes in several flavors. When we get these very wet years, for example, there's an opportunity to make managed aquifer recharge. So use of natural infrastructure is being prioritized, although there's many institutional hurdles to solve in order to get the water underground. So that is a part of what is being discussed right now in the legislature, just try to expedite groundwater management recharge, and just to take that water off the streams and the floodplain areas and doing intentional recharge. So there's also the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014 that came in the midst of the last 2012-2014 drought, 2016 drought, sorry, and that catalyzed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which requires local entities to be formed and file sustainability plans for managing groundwater. So that by 2040, all the groundwater basins in the state are sustainable. Sustainable in terms of 6 factors. I won't name them all, but essentially keeping balance between what is pumped out and what goes as recharge, either artificial through irrigation or from natural sources. So those are some of the sustainability areas I work on. You mentioned something internationally. Do you want me to answer that, or should I just wait on another question? I leave that to you. I can just chat briefly.
You can wait for another question, because maybe another question might might be connected with another question. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Carlos. Thank you so much for joining this call today. Matthew offered the option to go off script and ask my own question. So if that's okay, I'll go ahead and do that. So like I mentioned, I'm the partnerships guy at UCLA's Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. I saw you mentioned Daniel Swain as you're taking me through your slides. Yes. Do you work with Daniel?
I work with a think tank. A lot of the watershed collaboration in the early days came with the Public Policy Institute of California, or PPIC. And Dan Swain is a collaborator or an adjunct in the PPIC, same as I am. So I oftentimes see him, and maybe 5 years ago when I joined Merced, he was talking about the the whiplash weather, the whiplash climate that we're experimenting now. We just had the 3 driest year on record, and now we're having a very interesting year with a lot of flooding. So this makes resonates with what Dan has been working with.
Okay, that's helpful. There's something I want to ask you. So for the group, Daniel Swain has a great blog. It's a great thing. He's a go-to for journalists who do coverage of extreme weather events in climate change. He was involved in a study that got published in the last year or so that was about how overdue California is for like a 200-year flood or something like that. It's actually not the first time he was involved with a study like that. When I first started at UCLA, I remember seeing something that he wrote about that. But for some reason, the more recent one really caught wind, and I saw it everywhere. I saw the New York Times cover it. Celebrities on podcasts I listened to were talking about it. It had caught fire in a way that previous instances of that hadn't caught on. So I'm curious, from your perspective, is there something now that makes climate-related weather events easier to digest or easier for the general public to sort of grab hold on? Does it feel like something's changed, or do you think it was just sort of random, the fact that it got so viral?
Well, that's a great question. Drought caught a lot of press last year. We came up with a study indicating losses in the billions order. And oftentimes media is excited about, the big numbers on that, but one should step back a little and just put that in the context of the size of agriculture and the size of the shortages. So there were a few hotspots in some places in the state in which the drought brought significant economic losses and employment losses of the lowest income groups in the state. So that is undebatable. Nevertheless, is getting in the idea in the public that even if the climate change is not very popular among many groups in the U.S., it is more so in California, I would say, and so what we're talking now, or what I try to emphasize now, is not climate change. It's just like climate extremes, like the one we're living. It's just whether or not you believe in this, there's global warming or not. There's this evidence from recent years that we have very dry years and followed by very wet years. So we need to manage for both extremes. We need to be prepared with groundwater and enough reserves when there's not enough rain. And we need to also be prepared to put all this excess water underground so you can use it in those very dry years. So that is getting more in people's mind, regardless of their beliefs on climate change or not. Another thing that is came to mind in a recent studies is the increased water use during droughts. And there's a warmer atmosphere, a thirstier atmosphere, just by Fick's law, just by all this gradient of humidity. The atmosphere sucks more water. So plants need more water when there's a dry atmosphere, and so is soil. So if the soil is very dry, it absorbs more water easily. So more water is needed in dry years to irrigate crops. And that is something that is getting in people's mind as well. That was a long response. Sorry, got too excited.
Appreciate it.
This is fascinating to me. First of all, I just want to make sure I can say your name correctly. Is it Jose, or is it a variation on that? I apologize.
So it's a variation. It's Spanish for Joshua. So it's
Joshua. Yeah. Josué.
Yeah.
Josué. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I got that correctly, because I wasn't familiar with it. And it's interesting for me to hear you talk about agriculture. I grew up in Salinas, California, a huge agricultural base next to the other Monterey that you know. So my question, there's no guesswork here. You have them all in the chat, but just wanted you to talk a little bit about the faculty and your colleagues. We could ask about the numbers, and also if if this is kind of a cross UC initiative, or is it mainly kind of focused in around just Merced and your campus?
So that is a good question. So I'm today here more like representing the watershed at UC Davis. There's a lot of collaborative projects with watershed and in UC Merced, for example, just because my colleague Joshua Beers, also formerly at Davis, was a co-director and an associate director there. And now he's here at UC Merced. But there's collaboration with Santa Cruz, some with Berkeley, some with Riverside, but it's mostly centered on Davis. So the affiliated faculties, one in economics, one in geology, one in fish biology, and one in engineering. I would say about 10 years ago, or maybe like 12, 15 years ago, they started studying a lot of the issues of the Delta, just because it is a hub for a lot of the science, but then the scope expanded statewide. So a lot of the issues in the Central Valley and Salinas Valley was a big target for our nitrate study, just because, you know, the nature of agriculture down there, which is fascinating, has like 3 seasons, really high value stuff, but a lot of issues with nitrate contamination in communities. So yeah, so that's kind of the scope.
Great, thank you, Josué. I'm going to get this.
Hi, the focus of the center is water management. California has a controversial history of water management. Do you think that has any relevance to the center?
Yes, of course. As a lot of the contribution of the center, it was like the deltas. I didn't talk much about it, but some of you being from California has this is the hub for the water system. If you saw the 2 maps, all the water is kind of is concentrated in the delta. That's where it's pumped south to the cities and agriculture in the Central Valley, and it has levees that are aging and pretty weak, and in the event of an earthquake can certainly collapse and create this gradient or this space that can be filled out with water from the bay. That salinizes the water and can compromises the quality for agriculture in cities. It can just becomes extremely expensive to treat. So many years ago, the center came up with this study on the Delta that was very controversial, with many interagency efforts failed, and create this very succinct, super nice document. Well, I was a student at that time, a lot of more hair at that time, but this created a lot of really good recommendations on what to do and what to prioritize for policymakers. And I think that was kind of the one of the signature products of the center, just helping controversy, just inform discussions, as opposed to continue the yelling and the nonsense. So this was, in my opinion, a great product.
Thanks. So my question, and I didn't introduce my role outside of the UC network, but in my work, I work at the London School of Economics, and I work with student support. So really apt question. Thank you, Matthew. But can you tell us about any role of students in the center?
Yeah, well, there's several. There's 45 students working in the center at any given time. So it's a very friendly place. And we have from undergraduate students, undergrad assistants helping with lab work, collecting samples. One of the students is analyzing fish eyes, just like it's just like seeing what is in the microscope and identify some traits and some specific things. Others are analyzing water sediments. So there's a few labs there that they can contribute. So they follow a really good system in which their more senior student teaches the newcomers. So there's always a stable stream of students contributing to research. They also contribute in write-ups in the California Water Blog, in research papers, And many of them, if we're a little bit lucky, stay for a graduate degree and just become professional researchers, staff researchers, or just flock away to some place and get a career in either in academia, industry, or NGOs. So that's for the undergrads. The graduate students come more from research grants. We have a few masters, and the disciplines can vary a lot. Sometimes they are in geography, sustainable agriculture, engineering. There's many disciplines, fish biology, economics. So getting all these grants, the center has a way of, in interdisciplinary grants, the students become like the lifeblood of the research in the centers. So, and also there's some classes that are designed, like the one involving the field component on the Colorado River trip. That is a 2-week trip with going in a kayak and camping and no communication, but very skilled crew to help with any issues. So it is those are kind of a really good educational experiences for students. There's one in the Colorado River every year, and there's eventually in Nook River in Alaska. So there's this center is well known for those efforts. So there's really good experiences for students, I could tell.
Irisalda, you're next.
Yes, thank you. So Josué, I'll ask you one question, not the one in the chat. So the center works in an area that you have a multitude of activities from agriculture, seen from fisheries from your introduction. So my question is, are there any conflicts between these activities regarding to water? If there are, does the center has any way of helping these actors, or is there anything that the center does if there are these conflicts, and how are they managed? Thank you.
Well, that's an excellent question. There's always controversy in water. So it's like the urban users, agricultural users, and environmental users. So the orphans of the water system are two. Like one is the environment, and the other one is the disadvantaged communities. They have much less advocacy than agriculture, that has a lot of lobbying, and cities that have a lot of economic power because of the customer base. So the way to inform discussions that we try to do these workshops in which we get feedback from all these groups in the same room. So you just bring them to the room and they give their point of view. And we try to capture such point of view in the research as part of the research or the report, and make sure they are represented, and just try to do this in a multi-objective, reconciled way, as opposed to a controversial, non-productive way. So there's no doubt that there's trade-offs in all this, and agriculture has been takes a lot of the 80% of the beneficial uses. The other 20% is urban, and that constitutes about half of the water available in California. The other half goes to environmental uses. But along the way, a lot of the times the communities get forgotten. Just get a lot of a big drought. You dry a lot of wells in a disadvantaged community. So looking for ways in which we can provide healthy drinking water is something that is always on the works. So that is the way. The motto there is, you talk to the stakeholders now, or you talk to them later. So it's always to talk to them early in the process, and produce something that is more inclusive of the multi-objective nature of water resources. Hopefully that covers some of your questions.
Josué, the question I have, one of the reasons I volunteer for this committee is because I'm interested in sustainability, but I'm not an expert. I'm an agile coach. I don't know anything about sustainability. I mean, I read, but I'm another person on the street that is interested in sustainability and worried about climate change and all the news articles that you can read on the news. What advice would you give to the normal people, or to what requests would you have to the normal people to get involved, to learn, what would you say to not to the scientific community, not to your students, but anybody that is interested in sustainability, read something about water? Oh, what can I do about it?
Yeah, the way I think about it is imagine you have a checking account, right? It's just you have some money there, you have some expenses, and you have some income, right? So it's just that, right? We need to give back and put in something on the savings account for a non-rainy day. So in terms of water resources, that is groundwater, for example. Groundwater is no other, it's the most common problem, not in California, it's worldwide. It is a common property resource. If you heard that term, it is a kind of a good in which it's very hard to exclude everyone that is using it, but you can actually decline others' availability of the resource if you pump too much. So groundwater is a great example of sustainability, and it's about just making sure in the balance, in the average, you put as much as it goes out out of the pumping can go in. So not pump more than it's naturally recharged. Now, the same applies for other things, not just water, groundwater. The same applies for carbon emissions. Just make sure that we can capture as much carbon in the ground than the one that we're emitting through vehicles or through generation of electricity or transportation and many other things. So that's kind of my scenic view of sustainability, is just try to make sure that whatever that things are in balance, that we don't pump too much or much more than is naturally recharged or artificially recharged in a place. So we get that resource available for the future generations.
Right. Thank you.
My next question is that you have achieved quite a lot, and the resume or the CV that you put up at the beginning was very impressive. What's something that you feel, in a legacy sense, that you feel really proud of that you've done so far?
Well, that's a very nice compliment. Thanks very much. I see this as a career, right? I love what I do, and I love to tell others. So perhaps informing about droughts, just learning from what is a drought, what is a slow happening phenomenon, what is a recurrent event. It's not like it will just go away. Droughts have existed over centuries. Some of them, if the 3 rings show you evidence that lasted centuries. So just understanding that this is not a natural disaster, is part of things we have to manage for. And that there are many, there's no really scarcity of water, it's really scarcity of cheap water. So water will become more expensive because it will become harder to get, and there's no way that there were at some points, if you're been in California long enough, the conversations about bringing icebergs from the northern hemisphere and towed by a boat, or pipe from the Columbia River in Washington, or all these crazy ideas. And then, people started realizing that was not going to be possible. So just informing on what is plausible and helping inform the technical and policy discussion is for me quite an achievement. Our projects are sponsored by state agencies, and they really use our information to provide help to communities and to agriculture as well in cities.
Thank you for that. Sarah,
Wow,
I think it's you.
that really tees up the next question. What have been the center's greatest successes?
Inform the public, I think. The center has been really good in putting not only the technical articles, the publications that give you as an academic, tenure and eventually, some recognition, and educating the next generation of professionals. Is informing the general public. Is just putting out this blog, 600 words. That's kind of 800 words, a nice chart, and the takeaways. Or just take all the technical stuff out, put that in a little aside, and then just tell what is important about the problem, why, and what is that we can do as Diego was asking, as regular citizens for sustainability. What can we do with in our home? Is just saving water at home, saving, a lot of the 50% of the urban use is outdoors in California. Is in many places even more. So that's a good place to save. So yeah, the success has been in identifying these key takeaways on water-related issues.
Thank you.
Victoria, shall I'll ask Victoria, do you want to ask the next question, or shall I just jump in?
I'm happy to ask the next question. It's what particular regions in Europe could benefit from the work of the Center for Watershed Sciences?
Sorry, I missed the first part of the question. Sorry. What? Regions in Europe. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw that earlier. My apologies.
Kind of accept the kind of connect with what I my second question. Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Victoria. I think we learn a lot actually from European places. The Delta in the Netherlands is a perfect place. They have been dealing with flood for many centuries, and we're just learning in many regards. So we have taken a lot of the learning from the Netherlands for managing the Delta. Not that we do it very well in California. On the other end, a lot of the lessons from California apply to other places, such as the Mediterranean climate places like Spain, some of the Northern Africa, Italy. In terms of groundwater sustainability, for example, there was this law, as I was mentioning earlier, that was implemented in many places. There's absolutely no regulation on groundwater. Now there is regulation on groundwater. There's a time horizon, and many things can happen in the middle, in the way, and also the devil is on the details, of course. But in essence, I think is managing groundwater is something that could be beneficial for many areas in the world. And in exploring that through in a way that the Water Center has done, that is good. And also the problems of deltas. Fish biologists also are pretty good and recognized around the world. So freshwater biologists in the center are pretty take an approach on reconcile ecosystems, just recognizing that things are not going to be like a century or two ago when there were no people. There's people now, and we have to reconcile this urban landscape, agricultural landscape with the natural landscape. So that I think is some good lesson for other places as well.
All right, I'll jump in with the next one. It's going to be sort of a variation on the question I've been assigned. So when you reflect on the partnerships that you've had on local communities, the partnerships that you had with local communities or industry or government or other academic units, and you identify the most impactful ones when you reflect, could you just share a story about how did that partnership come about? Was it a granting body put out an RFP and then you cold called, reached out, or was it a long process of building relationships? And I'm asking from the vantage point of the support staff, because I'm trying to think about how can I better assist the cultivation of these impactful partnerships.
Right. No, that's an excellent question. A lot of the work that the watershed does is on is really the reputation built, and someone comes and says, well, here is some money to do this research because they know it will be independent and it will be inclusive. But it has a long history, and a lot of that is just bringing a group to all the groups to the table, and just have a venue to discuss issues in a productive way. An example I can put is the Yolo bypass. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. The Sacramento area a century ago used to have a lot of flooding, so they created this bypass infrastructure. There's a weird, and I'm not even sure if I pronounce that well. I tell my son, did I pronounce this well? Weird versus weird. So there's this weird that overtops, and then it gets to an area that is inundated, and it's called the Yolo bypass. And that is an excellent example of multipurpose infrastructure, because you create habitat for birds, fish that drain directly into the San Francisco Bay. Well, they migrate to the Sacramento Bay and feed on the straws of decomposing straws of rice and other crops, grow bigger than even the ones in the main channel of the Sacramento River. So this place is a place where they can have a flood infrastructure, flood protection infrastructure, also fish habitat, bird habitat, and healthy agriculture, because the farmers also can benefit from all the groundwater recharge. So that is an excellent example of a good collaborative project that has a lot of science in it. And the shed provided assistance on the fish biology, on the flood management, on the economics, and the engineering part of it.
Great. Well, thank you, Josué. Thank you, Colin, for those questions. And we're coming towards the end of the hour here. And in just a minute, I'm going to ask Diego to tell us about the next conversation in this series. But before I do that, I just wanted to thank you for giving of yourself, for telling us about what you do and your work, and really as an alumnus, as an engineer. And we deeply appreciate you doing this, Josué. It's been fascinating, and I've learned a lot. And I want to say to all of the group that at the end of the recording, we'll send an email out with a link to a recording of the talk, so you can listen to it again. And also, I want to say, Josué, that we hope that this is the beginning of a friendship with you, that we'll get to meet you again, maybe here in Europe someplace. And I'd like to thank all the members of the Sustainability Committee for putting this together, to Carlos, to Sarah, to Colin, and to Diego. And thank also everybody for tuning in. And Irisaldo, it's lovely to meet you, and thank you for joining us. And Patrick and Jason as well, for all of your support in this. Diego, can you tell us about the next conversation, please?
Sure. Thank you, Josué. Josué, again, muchas gracias. Next month, we are planning another event. We're going to have Michelle de Nevers. I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. I'm not very sure. She's the Executive Director of Sustainability Programs at Haas School of Business at Berkeley. And she has been tasked with making Haas the best business school for sustainability. Sounds very interesting to me. And she also teaches a climate science class at the Barcelona Institute. So she's going to talk about the carbon credits, what is the Paris Agreement, and she's also going to give us an update on what's the latest, or what Haas doing to fulfill that mission of become the best sustainability school. And also, if anybody is interested in being a member of the committee and participate and contribute to organizing these kind of events, you are more than welcome to join.
Great, thanks.
Would you say the date of that one more time? I tuned out.
Sorry?
The date for the next event, when was that again?
The date is February 14th.
14th. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If you've not got anything else to do that day.
Yeah.
I'm sure he can stop whatever he's doing. Cancel and
I'll bring my
the calendar.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be short and sweet. It'll be at the same time at this sort of 6 o'clock moment.
It'll be lovely.
It'll be lovely. It'll help you before you go out for dinner. Okay, has anybody else got any other questions before we'll sign off?
No, just thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Josué, for your time. It's been a very insightful and interesting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question for Josué. I managed to read one of your reports about the last draw from 2012 2016, and it started saying the draw brought all of these big problems, job losses and farm losses, blah blah blah, and then the conclusion was the economic impact was not that big. Nobody cares. So is it a problem or is not a problem?
Yeah, I hinted a little bit on that earlier, and what I say is you need to put the things into context, because if we lose, let's say 50% of the supplies of water from the atmosphere, from rain, we only end up with a loss of maybe 10% of the total water supply, and it's because we can pump groundwater. And the job losses, we have probably 450,000 jobs in agriculture, and you lose 10,000, that doesn't sound like much. The revenue losses are like 1.5 billion, and the total value of agriculture is 50 billion. That doesn't sound like much, right? But it is in the details where these things can complicate things. It is on those lower income families that lose their job, or you get those hotspots for extensive fallowing of land, or the farm workers have like some commuting or childcare issues or dry wells to deal with. So that's kind of where it becomes important. The farmers, farmers can afford droughts.
They will survive.
Yeah. So it's a different income group.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. Sorry about the last question. I was trying to find a place to ask, but Matthew's agenda didn't allow it.
Okay. All right then, everybody. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to ask quickly, because we're coming to the end now? No.
No, remember that one simple question. You told us once about some issues of UK in terms of water, because we have a big discussion here in the west of England authority. Now we might go to a draw soon. Incredible when written that every day rain. So talking a little bit, just briefly, we don't have too much time, but it's a very important topic, because considering that we are living,
right?
Diego is close my house, and everybody around here.
Yeah, well, it becomes also a problem of quality. Sometimes the fact that you have a lot of rain and it might not be a drought as such. Sometimes it's just water you cannot use. So it's just like in the US on the you know, the northeast area of the US is pretty wet, but has other types of issues. What I will do a commercial for my friend Julian Haru. He's also a UC Davis alumni in the same group I was with, and he works now in the University of Manchester. So I'll just keep an eye on this gentleman. He's yeah, and he works with the main utilities in the UK for water. So I will just put in the name there.
Great, that's terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone. Well, look, Josué, thank you very much once again, and enjoy the rest of your day. We thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and we're deeply grateful for this. So,
likewise, and I wanted to also thank the invitation. This was really good. Thanks, Carlos, for making the connection, and hope to this is the beginning of a good friendship. So
I hope so too. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.